What is up, Retro Maniacs? Welcome to Mike's Retro Card Chat, where the retro guys chat about cards. Today, I'm joined by fellow contributors Joe Day and Eric Pahowick, better known as EP. What's up, guys?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
There we go.
I'm ready to talk about graded cards for sure.
Well, that's a good thing
because pour this one out.
Oh, there you go.
It's sponsored. We need a beer sponsor or something.
Well, look at that.
That's a good pour right there, baby.
That's a solid pour. Absolutely.
Pour a little bit. Yeah, there we go. All right.
Well, I'm glad you want to talk about graded cards today, EP, because it just so happens that our topic for today is CSG's new label. It's a hot topic around the hobby. We're going to talk about the label, different changes they're making with the grading, and how we think it's going to affect everything. So let's start off with the easy part, Joe. What do you think of the new label?
So am I Joe or am I PSA fanboy? Because I can do either if I need.
Okay.
I can do the act. I'll tell you what, I like it. I think it's subtle. People complain about the font. I'm very confused about it. Like,
I know.
Font. It's not like it's
font,
in Ding Dings or something, right?
Yeah.
It's just a plain font. I think the color scheme looks good. I'm a Pittsburgh guy, so the black and yellow looks cool to me. I like that they have the hologram offset to the left instead of centered, so they're not stealing from PSA. And I like how they actually are bringing a border, which kind of makes the label seem smaller a little bit, which was one of the big bugaboos about the previous label, how big it was. I think the font, the color, everything, it just goes. It just works.
EP?
I've said to a couple people, I think it's very classy. I think like it's a very like the black looks perfect, but also I think it is modern enough that I like it better than the PSA. I'm not a huge fan of the PSA label. I love the new label. Like, you want my thoughts about it? I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I feel the same. You know, I saw it and instantly I'm like, wow, that's a really nice looking slab. I mean, the slab is beautiful. We know that. Like, I don't think there's a nicer slab out there, but that label, I think it really works. Like you said, EP, I feel like it's a little classier, and you know, it does what it needs to do. I like the fact, actually, you know, I asked my wife about this and I just showed her a picture of the new label and I brought her a PSA card so she could look at that. And I just randomly, I said, which one of these do you like better? And she picked the CSG label. She just said it looked a lot nicer. And she pointed out something I never really thought about too, that the grade is bigger. She didn't like how the grade was little on the PSA. And like, honestly, it took until she said that for me to realize that, yeah, you know, like, why is the grade not bigger on a PSA label? Like, everybody loves PSA labels just because they love PSA and they're used to it. But like, this is a person that doesn't collect cards looking at it like just as is. Exactly. And that was one of the things she pointed out. And she clearly liked the CSG label a lot more.
So there's a lot to unpack there. One, your wife is smarter than you, so that
well, I've never argued that.
But so
she has a master's degree. So
she does have a master's degree. So I will say the reason that beyond just the PSA fanboy thing that we always talk about, and it's true, there is a component of that. I will say the reason people tend to like the PSA label is, I'll say the three of us, we probably submitted cards before most people who will watch this back in 1999 and 2000, things like that. PSA label hasn't changed that much. It kind of reminds me of this little skit on Seinfeld where George was saying toilet paper hasn't changed. And Jerry and Elaine are like, well, there's quilted now and there's double ply. Yeah. But the basic premise is, for the most part, it hasn't changed. The PSA label hasn't really changed. It's always had that red border. It's always had the smaller grade, the gem mint, the different things. They haven't really changed it majorly. And I think that leads some credence to their skills or their abilities. It kind of gives you a little bit of confidence that they've been around forever. They've always kind of looked like this. It's cool. The thing about the larger grade, though, that I really like, I'm an SGC mark. right? I really love SGC. That's one of the things they do. They have a bigger grade, and then they do it with the diamonds or the pentagons or whatever, and they have the mint or mint plus. I kind of like how CSG is doing it better than SGC. They have the bigger label or the bigger number, and then above it they have gem mint, mint plus. I like that better than how CSG is doing it, and that's coming from me, which big mark for SGC.
And people are comfortable with the PSA logo, like that's what they're used to seeing, and I get that. You're looking at the same thing every day, so something different looks different to you. It just looks off, like that's not what you're used to seeing. So I get that, but if people could be a little more open-minded, like I don't see anything wrong with the label. Like I like the neutral color scheme. I think you're looking like if you have a blue card and a PSA holder or a green card, the red really doesn't go with it. Like I'm picturing different cards in the new CSG, and I think everything's going to look normal in it. I think it'll look good.
Before I forget about this thought, I mean, that's a really good point about the red, right? So one of the big knocks on CSG, which I didn't have a problem with the label beforehand. I know EP wasn't a huge fan of the CSG label beforehand. One of the big knocks, though, was that it was green. Oh, that's such a harsh color. I can't deal with this green. How is red not a harsh color? Harsh color? It's the one that's right in your face. So a light green is way more harsh than a red. It was very confusing to me. I'm glad they went more neutral, but I will say I didn't have a problem with the green because I was used to PSA's red right in your face.
Yeah.
It didn't really make a huge difference to me, but I can understand why the neutral makes more sense for people.
And that's a good point. I mean, so EP.
Actually, ES is my middle initial. So,
well, there you go.
I haven't told you ESP all these years.
I knew that because I wanted to throw it in your email when I was trying to send you the invite. But how important do you think a label really is to a slab?
As far as like protecting the card, the slab's most important. But I mean, as far like we're all collectors, we want the card, we want everything to look good. And for me, the issue with the CSG, the old CSG label was not just that it was green, but then there was all this white. Like it was such a big label. There's so much white and so much green that it kind of took away from the card, in my opinion. Where like I have this is an SGC, and you can see the number's big, but I mean it doesn't take away from the card. And the same thing, even though, like we said, the PSA is red, the label's not taken away from the card. But I feel like the CSG, because there was so much white, and then I wasn't a big fan of the green. Like the green color just wasn't my favorite, but it's exaggerated by that white. And I think that's a huge thing where where I'm seeing the label and not the card. And I really think that something like this, like really makes the card stand out, and you get that big grade, which I think is what the CSG one does. But with the CSG, with the new CSG one, it's got that black label, and then the big plastic, the big slab, which is really beautiful.
Well, and that's why
the slabs are great.
That's one of the big knocks, and I'm sure we could talk forever about HGA and all the things that they've done wrong. But that was one of the big knocks on HGA was, well, wait a minute, you're putting way too much stock. There's one. You're putting way too much stock in a label than you are the actual grading part of it, which some people like. I mean, there are certain labels that look great, but the funniest thing, the most subtle labels from HGA are the ones I collect myself. I would collect myself, where the flashy, the almost like a paint drop effect or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I don't like those. I want something more neutral that, like EP said, doesn't take away from the aesthetic of the card, which again should be the most important thing.
Yeah, and I like with HGA, I think there were certain cards that the custom label looked really cool, but for the mass market, just for your regular Chrome card or whatever you're getting graded, sometimes that was a little too much. So yeah, I like personally, I don't care a whole lot about labels. Like I've never really looked at a PSA label and said, oh, I don't like that, it's red. Or I do understand when the old CSG had that extra space at the bottom, like if they had the subgrades on it, it didn't look as bad. So I think that was a little weird to me, although I didn't hate it. But like, I personally, just for me, I've never been a person to look at a label and go, "Oh, I don't want that card because I don't like that label." Like the grade of the card and how accurate they're grading the card has
That's
always been way more important. But
That's
I mean, yeah,
too many people look at the grade and say, "Oh, that card's a 10." Well, no,
yeah,
sometimes it's not. I mean, you look at old PSA cards from 1999, 2000, 2001, you see a 10, it's not a 10. You could crack that open perfectly and send it in. It's getting an 8.
It's an 8.
You know, it's a 7, it's a 9, whatever. I mean, I think at the end of the day, as much as we're talking about the label, and it is important because that was their biggest knock, it really should be about how good they grade the card. But sadly, I feel like half the hobby world could care less about that. If they see a 10, they don't even look at the card. They don't look at the corners or the edges or the surface. They look at that 10, which looks really, really pretty when you're trying to resell a card.
Have you guys? Have I shown you guys my GMA 10? Jared
Ooh,
Kalanick. Yeah,
so,
it's a 10. It's a 10 right there. It's a 10. See the 10?
So since you brought that up, that is probably the biggest knock I've heard. And I kind of, almost playing devil's advocate, I kind of get it, that it kind of looks like a GMA label. I have seen that around, and I kind of compared the two, and I
put that up again, EP.
And how people, put that up again. It's got the black, it's got the yellow, it's got the big number. I can see, again, devil's advocate, I think it looks better than that. But I can understand how that could be a knock, or it could just be people who are so obsessed with PSA, they just want to find anything they can.
Oh, really? That happens?
That is a thing. I've heard that happen.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I think the font looks better, and I think the new CSG is just classier looking than the GMA one.
Oh yeah,
myself.
for sure.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, I can see where some people will draw that similarity, but I just don't like. I think the CSG one is so much higher, so much better off than the GMA.
Distant cousin that you haven't seen in 20 years. That's how close they are. Right. But when you're looking for things to make a point about how bad something is because you don't want it to be good, you'll find it
right there. That's it.
Yeah, that's it right there. So the label isn't the only thing that they're changing. They also announced that they're changing their grading scale. You know, people love their PSA 10s, and CSG is apparently listening to that, and they're doing away with the gem mint being 9.5. They're now going to grade a 10 a gem mint. They're going to throw the extra mint plus, I guess, in at 9.5, and they're doing away with subgrades. So what are your thoughts on that?
I really hope that they keep the standards the same, right? So that's the key issue, because they're kind of, I don't want to say stealing, because there's only so many ways you can do things, but they're kind of stealing the way SGC does it, right? Or even BGS a little bit. You know, they have those half grades going up to a 10. I guess more SGC because BGS still does subgrades, but they have those all the way up to 10 with the half grades. And I like that. And there are cards that are 10s. There are cards that are not 10s, but they're better than 9s.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
The problem you have is PSA, if you get a grader on a bad day and he's deciding between a 9 and a 10, you're getting a 9. If he's having a good day and he's deciding between a 9 and a 10, you're getting a 10. PSA has subgrades up to 8.5. Or I'm sorry, half grades up to 8.5. But they rarely use them. And some cards are not fully a 9 or fully an 8 or fully a 10 or fully a 9. I think the way that CSG is doing it and the way that SGC has been doing it, I'm a fan of, and I think they should really avail themselves to using that 9.5, because most cards aren't 10s, everyone. I know people who submit ultra modern are thinking every card
pack
I
pulled.
But I pulled it out of a pack. Yeah. So EP?
I like subgrades in concept, and I like how the educational part of it where they explain it to you. But the bottom line is, like, as long as the grade is accurate, I'm okay with not having subgrades. I I agree with Joe that I like the half grades. I think that's important. And why PSA doesn't have a grade of 9.5, so it's a 9 or a 10. Like that.
People want your 10 ZP. That's why they don't have it.
Yeah.
It just leads to so much uncertainty and so many questions and so many problems. Like, why not just have the 9.5? That's it.
Yeah.
The only thing I like about subgrades is that you get a reason, right?
Mhm.
I hate, and I think in comic books, CSG, what is it?
CCG,
CGC.
So their
CGC,
comic book partner, from what I understand, they send grading notes when they grade a comic book. I really wish there was something like that. They're so backlogged, they'd never do it, just grading companies in general.
Yeah.
But I really wish there was some reasoning. That's the one thing, the one reason I like subgrades is you can like, oh, wow, the surface is a 5. Oh, okay, now I can see what I missed.
But is it really too hard to do? Like they have a little place to input, okay, this was a 7 surface wear, or
Right.
this was a 8
But when you're
right
in PSA,
quarter
you're only
wear.
looking at a card for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That also makes the grader makes the grader more responsible for their with whatever they're doing. Like, I mean, because they have to say, okay, well, I'm giving this a 5 because of X.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like it would be possible. I mean, maybe it's just I'm naive because I don't work at doing that, so I don't know. But one of the things I was wondering, I was having a little talk on Twitter, and like some of the people were upset about not having subgrades, and some people really like that. And I saw that CSG said only 20% of their orders were for subgrades, but I was wondering if they might make subgrades available in the future, like for higher end cards, because I feel like if you're sending $100 card in, you really don't care about that. But if you're sending in like a $5,000 card, maybe you do care about the subgrades, and like they could probably work that into the price and just add it so people would know. Do you think?
As someone who has sent $5,000 cards in, just
yeah, I mean,
that's why I'm keeping
$5,000 cards in.
But I will say I like the subgrades when I'm looking at cards online. I don't know if I would prefer them if they were done well in terms of the look on the label, right? I actually like them up front. For me, a BGS slab with the subgrades up front, I like better than the ones that were on the reverse. If I'm sending in a big time graded card, just like that, I like that better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If I'm someone who's sending in a big time card to be graded, I want to know what's wrong with that card if I'm getting it back and it's coming back a 7, right? So for me, subgrades I think are important with that. Like you said, Mike, $100 card, it is what it is. We're all going to get kind of spin the wheel, and we're all going to hope that we get a 9 or a 10. But if it's $100 card, it's not the end of the world. When you're sending in a Bowman Chrome Brady rookie card, I want to know why you gave me a 7. So I would hope that down the road that they consider maybe upcharging again, because that's what they did previously, upcharging for subgrades. If you're going to charge $12 to get a card graded, I'll kick in an extra $5 to have subgrades if it's a card worth that.
Yeah, I agree. So what I've been wondering about, do you think, CSG has a reputation of being a really strict grader? Now, we can argue the semantics of that. Does strict actually mean accurate? And people are just kind of used to throwing a card into a certain company and getting a certain grade. And more accurate. Like, so call it strict, call it tough, call it accurate, whatever you want to call it. Do you think that with them going to the new scale and having the 10, do you think they're going to relax their standards to get that gem mint card, or are people going to be sending in a bunch of cards and getting all 9 5s back now?
I mean, part of this conversation also has to include their deal with eBay, right? Because I mean, are they going to loosen their standards because is that part of all the changes? I would like to think not, because I respect SGC and CSG because of I mean, I've not graded with either of the companies, but I know from everything I've read and heard and listening to you guys talk and seen the grades that the other people have gotten, like they seem like they are the fairest graders. Like they seem like they're people really appreciate the fairness of their grades. Some collectors appreciate the fairness of their grades.
Yeah, some collectors appreciate the fairness for sure. I mean, I would rather if I send a card in and I look at it and I say it's an 8. If it's a 10 and I look at it, I'm like, that's not a 10.
You
I'm
know
gonna
it's
sell
an
that
8.
card.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell it for
Right.
a 10
Right.
is
Yeah.
valued at. Easy. And I'll buy an 8 that looks like a 10 way before I just bought a 2000 Brady Prism card, Mike. Or I'll use this example because you've actually seen the card, the SGC 8 Pros and Prospects Brady rookie. I actually think that one looks better than an 8. Mike's going to pull it out and tease me with it, right? He's going to find the.
No, I'm not actually.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, when I look at it, I would rather have a card that looks like a 10 and has an 8 number next to it than reversed. If a card, in my opinion, looks like an 8 and someone slaps a 10 on it, that sucker's getting put on eBay in a heartbeat, right? I just want to make sure that they're accurate. And I really, truly believe from the grades, from the cards that I've sent in to be graded, SGC is the fairest or most accurate, however you want to call it. And I think my concern with PSA has always been it benefits them to churn out 10s because they can charge you more.
Yeah.
CSG and SGC, they don't. They charge you a flat rate. Whatever the card is, the card is. And I feel that that leads to a more consistent standard because there's no incentive for them to grade your card up higher, especially the ultra modern stuff where you can see it coming out with scratches on the surface and you know it shouldn't be a 10, but hey, this guy who's investing is going to send this card in, and if it comes back at 10, we can charge him $300 versus 50. You know, so I think there's a little bit of an issue there. So I with CSG, I think they will keep similar standards because there's no real incentive unless they're worried about the secondary market, which is understandable because they are a new company.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about all the things they're changing. What do you guys think this does long term for CSG? I mean, we all know PSA has a stranglehold on the market. They've done nothing but grow for the last, I don't know how many years. They're hiring more graders, they're grading more cards, their cards are worth more than everybody else. Do you think anybody can make a dent in it? Does this do anything? What do you think?
Well, you go
ahead, Joe. I'm probably the biggest baseball fan out of everybody here. I love prospecting for baseball prospects, and if I was going to rank the grading companies as prospects, like CSG would be at the top for me right now. I think with all the deals and everything they have with the eBay and everything, and the new slab, and the changes, like I will probably send more at this point in my head. I'm thinking I'll send more cards to CSG than any other the companies right now, especially at the $12 price. I'm assuming their prices are going to go up. You can't make all these changes and stay at the such a much lower level compared to the other companies.
So EP kind of stole my thunder because I was going to say two words.
Sorry.
2 words. $12, right?
$12
for accurate grading. I really truly believe that CSG has accurate grading, similar to SGC or SGC.
SGC. Yep, you had it.
You're right.
Yeah. I really
a lot of
feel
letters. A lot of letters.
There are a lot of acronyms. I really do feel that they have accurate grading, and I don't think the prices will go up that much because all they really changed was the label. People are confused on this, right? They kept the slab. It's the same exact slab. It's the same exact computer program because it's the same size label. The size
it doesn't look like it. Yeah,
it just doesn't look like it because it's framed. But they kept the same slab, which means they don't have to destroy the slabs that they have. and go out and get new ones. They're keeping the same slab. So I don't think the price is going to go up exponentially anytime soon. But to me, for someone like EP who does prospect with some baseball players, $12, man, that's killer to get accurate grades. Absolutely. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm an SGC guy, but guess what? I can sub 2 to 3 cards at CSG for the price that I'm paying for one SGC card. And if it's a card that's under $100, I'm not gonna spend $30. I'm not gonna spend 50 at PSA. Yeah. I mean, there is a point in the market where they can just grapple right now. It's that those type of cards. Sure, some people will send the top chromes, but
CSG, though, to get the $12 rate, you have to send in a 50 card order. So I think their cheapest is $20 for like a smaller order. Yeah,
it's still cheap, $10 cheaper than SGC, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
and some people are sending in those bulk orders. I mean, I'm gonna give him a shout out here because I think all three of us love him. Alico 3. I mean, he sends bulk orders all the time. If you're not watching Alico 3's YouTube channel, you're not doing cards right.
Great channel.
He sends bulk orders to SGC and PSA, and he's starting to wean off of PSA quite a bit and going to SGC. He's someone that if he said, I'm going to go to CSG or I'm going to start prospecting into CSG, that's someone who I would completely, I respect him so much and what he does and how he grades his own cards, that could be a game changer for me personally.
Yeah.
And the price is right. $12. That's what he was paying for PSA 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Yeah. Big difference now.
Oh, huge.
Yeah. That to me, I didn't even think about that, but just quick, Mike, I'll let you talk. But I think he has graded so many cards. He has such a wide experience, so much experience grading cards that if all of a sudden he says, "Here's my CSG order," that's going to change. That's going to make a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, well this is a real thing."
Yeah.
And I think that might happen. Like I really.
He's the reason I started subbing with SGC. I mean. So there are those, and we've talked about it on previous videos about influencers and things like that. He's one of those guys who he doesn't have a huge following because he doesn't beg for followers.
Yeah.
But when he says something, the 10,000 or so subscribers that he has, they follow because they know how smart he is. And he's one of the reasons I got into SGC. And I feel that if someone like that got behind CSG, I think they could really explode with a very, very, I would say the collector part of the hobby versus the quote investor part, because he's a little bit of both, but he feels more like a collector than an investor.
Yeah. Now, do either of you think that they're ever going to be able to close the gap though in the market pricing with PSA stuff? I mean, it is hard when, a PSA 10 of a card is bringing $500 and a CSG might bring $200. So do you see that gap ever changing? What do you think could make that change? Because I've had plenty of conversations with people on Twitter, and there are people that just say they will never. I don't like to throw out the term never, because I think you look back through history at different businesses that had a stranglehold on an industry that lost it. Like you've seen that over and over again. So
Barnes and Noble.
Exactly. So things can change. So do you think enough could change that the pricing could ever be different?
So this is just me, right? So if I randomly, I'm going back for Easter, right? And I'm going to visit my grandfather and my parents and things like that. I'm going to go through some of my old cards and say I randomly missed a Tom Brady Bowman Chrome rookie card. It just happened to be there, right? I'm sending it to PSA. I got to be honest. I'm going to, because the secondary market is so much different. You need these people. You need influencers. You need people who are willing, and we wax poetic about Alico 3. You need people like that saying, I'm going to send a bulk order to CSG, and then I'm going to put fixed price, no OBO, just fixed price on eBay for these slabs, because that's what he does with SGC. He doesn't put them auction, and he doesn't put them OBO, because he knows people will try and lowball him for his SGC
Oh
cards.
yeah.
You need people like that with CSG. And I think once that starts to happen and it starts to creep up, the problem that they have is PSA has a stranglehold. SGC has moved ahead of BGS.
Yeah.
So you have a couple of layers to go through. But you know what changes all of that? Money, right? If Michael Rubin's trying to throw money at CSG, or eBay is now using them for their authenticator, though there have been issues. To be fair, there have been issues. But if there's money being thrown at that company, there's no doubt in my mind that can cure all wounds, right? Influx of money can cure all wounds when it comes to how far back they are in the market share.
And that's been my point. Like, you have a company like Blackstone that invested and bought CSG. So, like, they're not going to spend $500 million on a company if they don't think they have potential to take something over. So one of the things, going back to a previous video when we talked about Michael Rubin and how he wants to grow the market, say there are 5 million card collectors right now. And if he grows the market tenfold, you now have 50 million card collectors. And if you're adding 45 million card collectors that don't have an allegiance to PSA, they've never graded cards before, that gives a company that's backed by somebody like him a huge opportunity, because, you know, like my wife liking the label, these people are going to come in and they may not necessarily go, oh, I have to use PSA. And that's what I feel. If he grows the market, he can change the market for the secondary market for graded cards.
Dude, you don't even have to go 10 times. Double the number. That's all you have to do. If you go from 5 million to 10 million, 5 million more people who now are robotically trained to grade cards, right? Yeah. When we collected, me, you, EP, when we collected back in the 90s and early 2000s, grading cards was a fringe thing to do.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now it's the norm. You have to have your card slabbed. I'm thinking about slabbing a Dan Marino rookie from a box of or a set of 1984 tops that I won through the card shop through our fantasy football. I'm thinking about it's so off-centered, but I want to see it in an SGC slab. Tunnel vision with grading cards now. So if you double that, 5 million to 10 million, whoo, that's a lot of cards that are going to get graded. Sorry, EP, I might have cut you off there.
No, it's fine. One of the things that I think, going back to what Joe was saying, like if you think back to then, BGS was the standard, right? Like it wasn't PSA.
Oh, yeah.
So these things change, just like Pepsi and Coke. Like these things are going to change.
That's a good point.
And what leads to those changes are the kinds of things that we have going on right now with CSG, with the new slab and with the deal with eBay and all these things. And I could see them really pushing to the point where they are. I mean, yeah, PSA has a stranglehold right now, but as like Mike was saying, you bring in all these people that don't have this allegiance to PSA, and then we have all this other stuff, conspiring to give CSG a chance. And I think that's the big thing for me.
No company, I don't think, in the quote unquote the hobby has more eyeballs than eBay, right? So
yeah, definitely.
If eBay is saying we're going to partner with this company, maybe they wanted to partner with PSA, maybe they wanted to partner with SGC. It doesn't matter at this point. They're now partnering with CSG. No other company has that eyeball set that they're providing them. Again, there have been a handful. I don't see many. There have been a handful of issues with the authentication situation. But still, what they say, no, there's no such thing as bad PR. I mean, people know CSG is with eBay. People know that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, especially with people who are new to maybe the hobby, but not new to eBay.
Yeah.
Oh, eBay is working with CSG? Oh, okay.
A lot more people using eBay than collecting cards. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So now you see someone who hasn't been in the hobby, they go to eBay, they start looking around. Oh, so eBay is working with this company. That must mean that this company is the company to use. I could totally see that being the case.
And PSA isn't going anywhere. Like I'm not saying, like, people act like there can only be one grading company. Like, you know, back in the day, we saw Beckett and PSA as equals. Like,
Yep.
you know, they were very similar at the time. And, you know, PSA has done a lot. They've expanded, they bought other businesses. They know they have to stay competitive.
They're going to have an East Coast company or an East Coast warehouse, right?
I feel like they know they can't just go, oh, we're the best, everybody's going to always use us. They're a business. They're smart people. They know they have to try to stay ahead too. But I could see a point where maybe those two companies are closer to equal in value. And, you know, PSA is not going to be gone. I'm not saying CSG is going to take over the world. PSA is going to be gone. But I could see a situation where they become near equals in the future.
And the one thing we haven't really talked about, their comic book grading is the best. Yeah, they are the PSA of comic book grading. How ignorant do people have to be to say, oh, they don't know how to grade things, we're just going to keep going with PSA. They grade comic books that people line up to buy. So why in the world could they not do that with cards? Comic books are harder to grade.
Much harder, yeah.
There are 4 major grading points for a card, right? Surface, edges, corners, and centering. A comic book has that on every page, right?
Yeah.
If CSG's sister company or cousin company, whatever, can do that with comic books, are you telling me that they can't do it with cards? Mind-blowing that people are so ignorant that they don't think that they could handle that. I have 2. I'm looking right now. I have the Death of Superman, and I have How Jordan Turned Into Parallax displayed. Guess what slab they're in right now?
CGC.
Right? They're not in PSA slabs, I'll tell you that. They're in the other acronym that I can, because of the beer, I can't.
CGC.
Right.
That's not beer. That's podcast juice.
Podcast juice. But I think it's ignorant to think that company, which has only been around for a year and a month, I have a hard time believing that company, in from the card perspective, can't make ground like they did in the comic books.
And that people are going to pay $500 million to invest in a company that's not going to go anywhere. Like, that's the short-sightedness of a lot of people in the hobby and stuff. Like, oh, this is, like, we've seen it. No, this will never change. Stuff changes. Like, it just does.
By the way, when we first started grading, the 3 of us first started grading, I remember believing Beckett was the best.
They were at that point in time. They were considered a harder grader. So if you had a 9.5, they were more valuable than a PSA 10.
And that leads back to, I think we talked about this in the previous podcast, or the previous video. People want 10s. People just love 10s, and that's what killed Beckett. And guess what? CSG saw that and was like, we're gonna have 10s now. We're going to figure it out. We've been doing this for only a year in terms of the trading card space for sports cards. We see people want 10s. 10s feel important. And we didn't even talk about their quote, quote, perfect 10. But people want that. And I really believe that if they come in and start fairly giving 10s, they are going to start creeping up in value, close-ish to where PSA, probably a PSA 9. That's kind of where you want to be at this point before you try and pass them. You want your 10 to be a PSA 9 in terms of value. And I think if they can do that, I think they're on the right trajectory.
Okay. Well, great chat today. Any closing thoughts about this?
I'm gonna subs with CSG at some point. I'm sure. I mean, there are cards that I have that I'm not 100% confident in sending to PSA because of the price. That, you know, Mike, I know you send a lot of stuff. If you send a bulk order, I'd be like, hey, I have a few cards that I
I
want.
am going to. Yeah. I already started going through mine. So I have a lot of cards that, you know, I can't spend $50 to get graded, and I don't even want to spend 30. So $12, yeah, I'll take a shot. Why not?
Yeah, and I have a bunch of cards like that too. I mean, I went through because I won the lottery, and I couldn't find any cards worth sending to PSA for $50 that I wouldn't have sent normally anyway, right? I mean, there are certain cards you would have already sent to PSA for the 100 or 150, and even if you send it for 50, you're going to get upcharged anyway, right? There are cards in my collection that I would love to have slabbed that I'm not spending 50 or even $30 for, that I think I would use them as a possibility. And by the way, closing thought, I am buying up 9.5s now. We didn't talk about this. They're going to reslab and regrade current 9.5s. If you have a CSG 9.5, if you're not spending the $5 to send it to get possibly regraded up to a 10, you're doing things wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm right there with you guys. I'm right there with you guys where I have these cards that are like, man, if I hit a 10, then the card appreciates by like $10 or whatever, you know, over what the grading fee is at PSA or whatever. So like to have a $12 entry fee or even a $20 entry fee, like I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to definitely send some cards to CSG.
Okay. Well, great chat, and we'll be back again soon. Take care, boys. Thanks for listening to the Retro Card Chat podcast. Look for a new episode every week.